Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. In this video, we're looking at the MLB slate for Friday. Happy Friday to everybody. We have a huge slate tonight, 14 games starting at 7:05, so not too much time to waste. There's a lot to talk about. It's also a slate that has cores on it, so a lot of the ownership's going to be going to cores regardless of how many games, how many other teams are on the slate. So I definitely think there's a lot of pivots to be made and some reasonable ways to get different. So let's go ahead and get right into it. As always, appreciate if you guys hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. You can follow on Twitter at the DFS Process, and let's get started. So I'll do a quick rundown of the teams and the totals that we have. I'm not gonna focus on going through every single team and focusing on every single hitter, but just looking at the stacks that jump out to me. First one is the national stack against Taylor Widener. There are some cheap hitters in this lineup that look appealing. I would definitely like to get to the top half of the order with the Josh Bell, Soto, Turner, Schwarber stack. Even Josh Harrison's been showing off so far this season. He's only 39. Can play him at second or third base. So they are probably like my third or fourth stacking option today. Definitely in the mix. I think the Phillies are a very reasonable stack. Looking at Carlos Martinez, he's been on the big time decline. Looking at his stuff last year, he gave up a 755 slugging. It's a small sample size, but couldn't really get any side, either side of the plate out. Even back in 2019 is when he was really good. That was a couple years ago. He was also limited there. But last couple years, 2020, 2021, so far in his two starts, he hasn't been very good. So I definitely think the Phillies, especially if they're not getting too much ownership, they are a great kind of contrarian stack on a 14-game slate. The strikeouts have been way down, so that is definitely not a great sign. So Phillies are definitely one of the teams I'm looking to stack today. Don't really want to stack any of these Giants or Marlins in Miami. Descalfini is a decent pitcher. You could look to some righties against Daniel Castano. I haven't heard of his name yet, but think you could look to some of these guys like Darren Ruff, Slater, and Longoria, but they're not on my radar. We have some weather in some of these games, so if nothing clears up before getting later in the afternoon, you can just avoid those games. Plenty of other teams to play. Hoffman against Allen, I'm not looking at either pitcher, not really looking at either offense besides a couple of one-offs. Against Logan Allen, you could look to Nick Senzel, $3,400 cheap hitter, batting sixth. On the Indian side, you have guys with pop, with Reyes, has double home run upside, so he's always in the mix. And if Rosario bats leadoff, both Rosarios I think are in play, but Ahmed, if he bats leadoff, he is a great value. Play him at outfield or shortstop. Not really looking at these four teams either to really stack up. We have some weather in this Royals game, so if that does get postponed, then if there's rain, you can't look at either pitcher, and if there is a chance of postponement, I'll just avoid that game entirely. Jorge Lopez against Voltynowicz. The Rangers probably won't get too much ownership today, but they've been, whenever they face off against like a righty, I'll have some interest because Nate Lau, Gallo, David Dahl all give you a ton of pop, especially Lau, who's been having a great start to the season. And I don't think they'll get too much ownership today against Lopez, who is not a scary pitcher. So you could look to some one-offs on the Ranger side or stack those three up. Now getting to some of the more popular stacks, definitely the Mets will be the most popular stack of the day going into Coors against Chichi Gonzalez. It's a fine spot, but the weather isn't the best for Coors, 38 degrees with some rain potentially. I do like some guys like Brennan Nemo batting leadoff, $4,100. You have Alonzo Smith with a ton of pop. Conforto is cheap. But if they're going to be like 30% owned on a 14-game slate, that is just perfect opportunity to go to some other teams because 27 other teams that can score as more runs than the Mets. It's not likely that they deserve to have 30, 25, 30% ownership, whatever they end up with. I love the Angels and I like the A's. They're my two top stacks of the day. Angels against a bad lefty and Luis Thorpe, 6+ ERA in his career. It's been a small sample size, but still big enough to where I definitely want to attack some of these Angels hitters against him, especially Trout. Ohtani, even though it's lefty, I don't think he'll last too long in the game. And then on the A's side, Urena has been awful. He has like 9 walks and 9 strikeouts this season in 7+ innings. So looking at guys that can get on base and steal like Laureano, and guys with a lot of pop like Matt Olson. Moreland is cheap. Piscotty is only 2,600. Those are my top 2 stacks to consider. Then you could look to the Dodgers if you wanted to against a lefty. But going back to DraftKings, pitching-wise, you have 3 studs at the top with DeGrom, Buehler, and Scherzer. DeGrom's in Coors, so I don't think people will go to him at 11,000. Buehler is against the Padres, and looks like Tatis will be making his return, so that lineup has gotten back to kind of normal if Will Myers is in there. Scherzer, 10-4. It's against the Diamondbacks, who just roughed up Corbin last night, so I don't know if that many people will go to Scherzer. I definitely think you could go cheap here with like a Descalfini as your SP1, or go with a Zach Eflin at 86 as an SP1. They have a 3.9 total. They're filled with a lot of righties, a couple lefties in there. Eflin gives you some strikeout upside. Do like the Phillies lineup today, so I think they'll be able to give him some run support. Might have a chance to get the win. So Zach Eflin is in the mix. For me, you can even go cheaper than that and go with two guys in the 7K and 6K range. One guy that I really like is Frankie Montas against the Tigers. He just has a lot of talent for this price tag. He gives you strikeout upside. He was really bad against the Dodgers. Bounced back nicely against still a tough Houston lineup. The Tigers have been good at times this year, but I still like the upside that Montas presents at a very reasonable price tag. So he's going to be the first guy that I put in here. And then you have some guys in the 6K range that are somewhat appealing, like Heaney. Not the best spot against the Twins, especially with Nelson Cruz in that lineup. But he is still a little bit too cheap, I would say, at home. I do like the Angels here, so hopefully he has a lead and can maybe go 5 or 6 innings to potentially get the win. I think he should be more expensive than 68, regardless of the fact that he does have the propensity to get blown up. But besides Cruz, besides Garver, I think he can kind of, if he's careful with those guys, he can be fine against the Twins. They still strike out at a decent clip with some of these hitters, besides like Luis Arraez, who never strikes out. But Montas Heaney gives you plenty of ability to spend out for your hitters. And that's definitely what I want to do today. First base, you definitely can go to Alonso if you wanted to. You can go up to maybe go up to like a Muncy, even though it's lefty-lefty. I'm kind of looking down in the 4K range. I like Ohtani a bunch, even though it's a lefty-lefty. I like Nate Lau at 45. He's been unbelievably good in terms of power. Already has 15 RBIs in like 13 games. He's amazing. He's in consideration. But I got to go with Matt Olson against Urena. He's just not a scary pitcher at this point. He gives up a ton of pop. He gives up hard hits left and right. And this A's lineup starting to get there, starting to turn the things around. I like them more against lefties, but I'm fine targeting them against a right-handed pitcher, especially Matt Olson with the 30-plus home run power that he possesses. Looking at Urena splits here. So far, has been bad against both sides, especially against lefties, giving up a 316 average, but it's a really small sample size. Looking back at 2020, it was garbage against lefties. 406 average, giving up 781 slugging. Definitely looks like he's a lot worse against lefties, so that's a great sign for Matt Olson. Let's see what the advanced numbers have to say. It's a 5.49 xFIP, 1.47 home run per 9. I love Matt Olson even more than I did by looking at those numbers. So definitely looking at Matt Olson as a first base option. Over at second base here, you can go up for maybe you can go for a Merrifield against a lefty he's really good against lefties. If that game is a go today. You have McMahon at 5,600. He looks okay. We'll see. The Astros lineup is probably going to be depleted. See what their lineup looks like. They have a 4-1 total. A lot of their better hitters are on the injured list. So maybe instead of going to Heaney, we can kind of go with Kikuchi, who's been a lot better this year at $7,200 against a watered-down lineup with the strikeout upside that he does possess. I like Kikuchi more than Heaney now that I think about it, especially because I did want to target Cruz. I don't want to target Cruz against Heaney if I have Heaney as my pitcher. Kikuchi Montas, I think, give you a ton of upside, especially with just remembering how bad that Houston lineup is now that they don't have Alvarez in the lineup, now that they don't have Bregman or Altuve. A lot more strikeouts, a lot worse hitters. So definitely looking at Matt Olson. Still as my first baseman, though. Second base, kind of looking maybe a little bit cheaper here. Jed Lowry is a potential target. Just been great all season, especially as of late. At 41 is a good price tag for him. No, Fletcher is second base eligible. He is. He's $4,100. Batting leadoff, he would be a nice option to get to as a potential stack. Third base, McMahon is 56. There's no way anybody will be playing him. I cannot recommend him against DeGrom, even though it's in Coors. I'm going down here a little bit for like a Turner against a lefty. He mashes those. He mashes lefties. You can go to Jose Ramirez, $4,900. Nicely priced. Decent price tag on him. I like Matt Chapman, though, $4,400, even though Urena has been a lot worse against lefties. I'm still targeting some of these righties against him when I do stack a team, and that's going to be a guy like Matt Chapman, who does have a ton of pop. at a pretty nice price tag. Josh Donaldson, he hits lefties well. We can target him. Alec Boehm, $3,900 is cheap. If you wanted to go to a cheaper third base option, Boehm against Martinez, who I do like to target some Phillies bats against. He's also in the mix. But right now, I'm going to go ahead. If Rendon was playing, I would have put him in here at third base, but he's still on the injured list. So I'm going to go ahead and put in Chapman, my second favorite guy. Second favorite guy to target at third base. Probably Boehm is my third. Shortstop, it's Turner is my favorite to target as a spend up. Probably go down to maybe a Lindor. Go even cheaper here for a Didi Gregorius is $4,400. He's been showing off by getting on base, hitting for a high average so far this season. He's definitely in the mix against Martinez. Martinez probably good to give up at least one, maybe two home runs today. He's got to pick which Philly hits them. Gregorius gives you stat upside with the pop. And that's kind of it. I mean, I'm going cheap with my pitcher, so I'm looking at more of these expensive hitters today. I'm not going to fill it out with some bottom hitters because I don't need to. Outfield, I got to go Mike Trout as my favorite. Spend up on the slate against a lefty and Thorpe. I love the Angels today. I think they'll put up some damage against the Twins here. And I got to go with Mike Trout with the great season that he's been having so far. Juan Soto is probably my second favorite. Go down to a Nelson Cruz. He mashes lefties, especially Heaney. He has 3 bombs off of him in 12 at-bats. You can go to Castellanos. Also mashes lefties. He is cooled down a little bit since he got off to an incredible hot start. He's like 1 for his last 20-something. But it is a good spot for him to kind of get back on track. Still in a great ballpark to hit in at home. And then you have Bryce Harper against Carlos Martinez. He's not been great, but it is a great spot to target some of these Phillies against a pitcher that is going to give up some pop, is going to give up some hits. I think Bryce Harper at $5,200 might not get too much ownership, so I'm going to take a shot on Harper and hope that he kind of has a breakout game today because he's definitely due for one. So that is it. Other hitters to look at here. I mean, this is how I like to sort, especially on these big slates. I go to Fantasy Labs, click on this outfield tab, and then I kind of look at the teams I want to stack and see which hitters look appealing. So on the A side, Laureano at only 39 is appealing. Piscotty is super cheap if you needed a cheap hitter. If Upton's in the lineup, he looks appealing. Ohtani. On the Philly side, they have McCutchen batting leadoff. 37 is a great price tag. Mickey Moniak, Phillies prospect, projected about 8th. That could be a nice steal if nobody's going to target him. He's only 2K. Got to keep an eye on that. And then Soto, Schwarber on the Nats side. And then Brandon Nimmo would be a target on the Mets side. But that's it for the DK side. Looking at the Angels, A's, and Phillies today as my primary stacks. Rounded out with maybe some Mets for people that like to stack cores. But on this type of slate, I think you can get around it. So that's it for DK. Let's look at FanDuel. All right, over here on FanDuel, pitching-wise, I still think you can spend down a little bit here. If you don't want to go up to DeGrom in cores or go to a Scherzer against a Diamondbacks team that just roughed up Corbin last night. I'm kind of like going to maybe a Zach Eflin 85, good price tag, guy that does give you some strikeout upside. Could even go cheaper for like a Frankie Montas or a Kikuchi. Kikuchi is 88, so he's a little bit more expensive than he is on DraftKings. I like what Montas brings, which is a lot of strikeouts, and he could get blown up if he doesn't have his command. We've seen it happen. But I'm going to side with that great price tag in a great ballpark against a lineup that I think will kind of, over the course of the season, kind of even out to being below average. I like to go to Montas as my pitcher. Stacking-wise, it's still the same kind of teams I'm looking to stack here. Let's look at the price tags on the Angels side here. Still have a really nice price tag on. Still, Trout is appealing, $4,400. Ohtani is expensive, but you can get him in a stack. You have Walsh, lefty isn't the best. We'll see. Cruz is only 4K against a lefty, so that's got to be interesting. Fletcher batting leadoff, $2,800. If Upton is in the lineup, $2,700. He's in play. Other team that I liked was the Oakland side. You have Laureano's 4K, so they did price them up a little bit. You still got nice price tags on Canna, Chapman, Matt Olson, $3,100. So I gotta like them. I'm gonna start with Matt Olson again. 31 is too cheap for a guy that against Arena, who's been garbage against lefties his entire career, and it's only gotten worse recently. Now let's look at the Phillies here. Kind of hitters we got on the Phillies, kind of price tags. Harper 42, it's okay. Real Muto is 31, that's fine to get to. Didi is 31. I do like the Phillies stack as well today, but I'm going to stick with Matt Olson as my first guy. I'm going to stick with Mike Trout. They're like the two guys I want to start my lineup with on both sites. From a hitter's perspective, Still leaves you with $3,300 almost. I'm sure Jed Lowry is still super. He's priced up a little bit, 35, so he's not that much of a must play. But I'm going back to Bryce Harper against against a righty in Martinez, who just struggles against lefties, and I think Harper can do some damage at home. So Harper, Trout, Olsen as a as my hitters to start, and then we'll see. I think Alec Bohm might be really cheap. He's $2,800. He's definitely affordable. Matt Chapman is also nicely priced. He's like $3,400. Taking between them, it's going to be tough. Maybe I can throw one of them in the utility spot. And then Jose Ramirez is only $3,200 against Jeff Hoffman. That is I don't want to stack up the Indians too much, but that's a great one-off sort of a price tag. See what we have at shortstop today. Besides the guys that are really expensive, you have Didi is $3,100. Anderson, Fletcher. Probably decide with Didi. Gives you some pop compared to some of those guys. Nice price tag. Probably do with like a small 2 or 3 man Philly stack, 3-man A's through maybe 3-man Angels. See what happens. But I want to get to at least a couple Phillies against Martinez. And definitely want to get to some of those lefties. Harper and Didi, 2 lefties with a lot of pop. So that's it for this baseball slate. It's definitely one where there's so many ways to go. So definitely don't worry about ownership too much besides for the Mets game. And that's it for the video. I'll work on the NBA video now. So thank you guys for watching. Best of luck tonight. And I'll catch you all next time.